All right.
Yeah, I'm your substitute.
Thank you,
Something.
Scott. I really appreciate it.
Ruth
And-
Douglas has her hand up. Should she be a panelist today?
She can be. We would love to have her.
Okay, I will move her over then.
Okay.
You guys are ready to get started anytime.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share the agenda. And let's see. That. Right. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Fantastic. And so I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website and on the Albemarle County calendar when available. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to go ahead and list the people that are here. So we have Peggy, Kate, Lonnie, Bruce, Leah, Michael. I know Emily is absent, and Nancy's going to be coming in later. And I don't know if has Emma joined us. I don't think she has yet. So those are the people that are present. So Emma is not present yet. I want to welcome Michael Callahan, who is considering joining the Natural Heritage Committee, and I really hope he does. And Mike, I hope you're okay that I actually sent your resume around so everybody can see some of the depth of experience you have, and
I'm glad you did. Thank you.
We can have a minute, we could do just a brief introduction of everybody, and we'd love to, so you can get to know everybody and we can know a little bit about you as well. But we hope you decide to join us.
Thank
and
you.
then
It's much
Ruth, thank
quieter
you
there
for,
than it is here.
okay. And Ruth, thank you for joining us as well. And if I think I have all of our guests right now. And what I did, Kim had some knee surgery. So she said she had some surgery on that knee already, but she had to go back in and do some work on it. So we'll hold her in our thoughts, and hopefully she's got a speedy recovery for that. And that's the reason why she was not able to join us. But thank you, Scott, for being here, and also to Carolyn. And so we're going to go ahead and review the agenda, which is in front of you. And if we can go ahead and we'll go ahead, review it. And if we can approve the agenda, that would be great. Would anybody like to move to do that?
I move to approve the agenda.
Did you manage to add to the agenda the native plant database?
No, Lonnie, but if you don't, I remembered that you wanted to talk about it. So I'm gonna put that on the end, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Okay, fantastic. Do I have a second on this?
I'll second it.
Okay, fantastic. And oh gosh, do we really have to go through this list or can we just, does anybody not approve of the minutes?
Or not the minutes, the
Oh, excuse me, the agenda.
yeah.
Okay. Sounds like everybody approves of the agenda. Fantastic. I hope that everybody had a chance to look at the wonderful minutes that Kim sent. I have them in front of us, and she did a great job just outlining our last meeting, and we had the pleasure of talking with Cambic and Tim Padalino And so really looking forward to a partnership with them.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions about the minutes or revisions for them or additions? And if not, can somebody provide a motion to approve these minutes?
I so move to approve the minutes.
Wonderful.
second.
And second on that?
I'll
Sorry, who was the
second
second?
That's Leah.
it. Mhm.
Okay, sorry, I heard a few overlapping voices. So
Thank you. And Scott's, it sounds like he's taken some minutes as well.
Correct notes.
Right. And
So should we all vote on that then, I guess?
yes, let's go ahead and vote on it.
Okay.
Peggy, is that a yes?
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Lonnie,
Aye.
Bruce,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
All right. And I don't believe Emma has joined us. Or Lonnie or Nancy. All right.
Lonnie's here. Lonnie's here.
I just voted.
Oh,
I hope
not
I'm here.
Lonnie.
He just voted.
I'm sorry. Nancy and Kenan, because Kenan said he
Yeah.
was going to join us.
Oh, yeah. I
Which
haven't
was-
seen it in a while. Yeah.
I know,
I have
it was-
someone with their hand up in the audience that could be somebody that needs to be moved over. Go ahead.
No.
Speak.
Yeah, this is Emma.
Oh, Emma,
Yay.
can we move her into the meeting?
I sure did. She's there.
Oh, she's there. Okay. Hi, Emma.
Good.
Great. All right, wonderful. All right, I'm going to go back to our minutes. And, but I would just like to take a minute, if it's okay with everybody, just maybe we could do just a quick round of introductions for Mike and sort of, maybe you could just say a word about the thing that you are passionate about that's related to your work with the National Heritage Committee. And I will start. I'm Christine, and I am really excited about reducing mowing in Albemarle County and educating landowners about the benefits of doing that.
I'll go
I'm
next.
Yeah, great.
Peggy Cornett, Curator of Plants at Monticello, and I'm equally passionate about reducing mowing and just native plant preservation in general, native habitat preservation in general at
Thanks.
Monticello and elsewhere.
Kate, how about you?
Hi, I'm Kate Malik. I'm a farmer. And today I am most passionate about environmental health and safety, biodiversity, and particularly pollution reduction.
Thank you. Lonnie.
Yeah, so I'm Lonnie, and I guess I'm most passionate about policies that protect biodiversity in Albemarle County.
Thanks, Lonnie. How about Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma Andrews, and I'm passionate about biodiversity and food sovereignty and educating people about the plants and animals that are around them.
Nice, thank you. Bruce.
Hi, I'm Bruce Gatling Austin. I'm most passionate about educating the general public about the wonderful biodiversity that we have here, and in doing so, making the general public want to be involved in preserving our biodiversity.
Thanks, Bruce. Michael, oh, Leah. Leah, I'm going down my list.
Hi, I'm Leah, and I'm really passionate right now about identifying and preserving wildlife corridors or high quality habitat for wildlife to move through the county.
Thanks, Leah. And Michael.
I'm Mike Rodemeyer, and I think Bruce, basically, whatever he said is what I would have said.
Thank you, Michael. And Mike, I don't know if there's anything that popped out to you, with you as you were looking over some of those materials and looking over our rolling work plan that sort of you'd like to share with the rest of the
It's a lot to get your hands around. I was very interested in stormwater, water quality, and actually food security for the master gardeners. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to take the class. So Fern Campbell has invited me to continue to work on those things. And I don't know if, I have gone through the plan and looked at it and made some notes. But I think it's a combination of much of what you all have described. I have similar passion for. That's why I have an interest in the committee. So I will just say I'm a team member and and want to pursue in general pretty much everything else you all have described so far. So I'll hopefully have a few more details as we progress.
Right. Thank you so much, Mike. It's really great to have you. And I hope you will consider that you will join us. It would be fantastic. And speaking of several of us have our terms are ending in the end of September. And I checked with the county clerk. It sounds like we're going to get notified and we will get an email and prompted to go ahead and reapply. So we'll just wait for that email to come because I'm one of the people whose term expires on September 30th. So we'll just hold out with that. And Michael has told me that he's not going to re-up. And so I just want to take a minute to thank him for all of his service, and it'll be sad to have him leave, but maybe he will come as a friend. We'll put you on the friend of the NHC list, Michael.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really have learned an enormous amount in the last 4 years, but I mean, this is largely driven by the fact that the service on the electoral board is taking up much more time than I had expected, since our legislature can't seem to keep its hands off changing the laws every couple of months. And so we've had a lot to do, and on top of of course, dealing with COVID. But I will definitely remain friends of and hope to be able to participate with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Important work that you're doing. So
Very much.
we'll give you a pass.
Okay, thanks.
All right, but you're going to stick with us for our August and September meeting, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. All right, well, I'd like to just, if anybody has any important site update made in the last month, would love to hear from anybody who can report on that.
I'll report on the fact out of Tufton Farm, we have actually had orals, or we've had sightings and also heard bobwhite. Not sure how many, it might just be one, but that's a really good sign. And I immediately sent out an email to people who are responsible for mowing out there and everything, and tried to encourage. I have a link to a really good article about delayed mowing until at least, actually it says till August 15th, which is pretty late, and I also sent the same email down to friends at Poplar Forest in Lynchburg, Virginia, and because they have quite a lot of land there too, and I'm friends with the archaeologist there, and so he's sharing that with the people who manage the fields around Poplar Forest, which is not in Albemarle County, but it's just an outreach. So hopefully we can. There's still meadowlarks at Tufton Farm and grasshopper sparrows, but we haven't really heard bobwhite in many years, so that was good.
So Peggy, I assume you know about Working Lands for Wildlife through
DC.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we had that. They've been at Tufton. Keith Nevison was working with them last year before he lost his position at Monticello, and so he had them do some surveys, and also, and he's actually had them out at Bundoran where he's working now, and they've also, and they've done some bird and floral surveys out there at Bundoran. So he's also on the same track of trying to preserve these meadowlands and for wildlife and for birds too. So, but yes, I am aware of them. Yeah, it'd be nice actually. Though I would like to arrange to have them give a presentation like we saw for this committee to people at Monticello. I think that would be very helpful and very. I need to do that. Try to do
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, if I can help in any way, I mean, Corey,
Okay.
yeah,
That would
Corey
be
and
great.
Dana are the people that you need to talk to.
Okay.
Both of them are great. I have those contacts if you
Oh,
want to set
good.
something up.
I'll circle back to you directly then. That would be great if I could try to arrange to have them do that, like that PowerPoint and the presentation they did with.
I mean,
yeah.
and I don't know that we've ever had NRCS to this meeting either. That might be something that could be done in the future as well.
I don't think so. That would be good too. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Peggy, for that. I'd love to see what you sent around that document as well.
I'll forward that to you. It's just an email, but with a link and to a really good article that has, good visual images in it. And it might have come from the, that working landscape group, actually. I'll send it to you though. Yeah. The link, I mean, yeah.
That would be great.
Okay, will do. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's good news.
Um,
I just wanted to, I put the important site outreach because I had sent an email in June, just encouraging people to sign up for those important sites, just to be a steward and to keep an eye out for them and potentially reach out to landowners if they are privately owned. And I just want to thank Emily and Bruce and Emma. Did I miss anybody? And Michael, I'm not sure who else has signed up, but those of you who did, I really appreciate that. And I know myself, I have Blenheim Grasslands and the southern part of Biscuit Run, which are, I own one of them, so that's easy. And Albemarle County owns the other. But then I also have on my list the southern Albemarle Mountains, which there are like 50 landowners. So I took a good look at that area. And if anybody has some suggestions about where to start or who I might reach out to, I'd be grateful for that. But I'm going
Well, a
to.
really good start is Bundoran because they own a huge chunk of the southern Albemarle Mountains.
Well,
And
Lonnie, maybe I can get with you later about that. I really appreciate it.
the person, yeah.
Keith Nevison is manager of that now. I mean, I
Oh.
text him all the time. He used to be the manager at Tufton Farm, and he lost the job last year, and so he got a new job there at Bundoran. So I can get you in touch with him. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. He's on board with all this stuff too, and he's manager out there. So.
Oh, that's terrific.
I seem to remember hearing that the Land Trust of Virginia had either purchased or been gifted a parcel that's adjacent to Bundoran up on the ridge.
Huh.
I can double check that, but I seem to remember hearing that from Rex Linville a while
Yeah,
back.
and we had some discussion in this committee in the past about contacting them and paying a visit to that piece of property.
Okay.
And that would be another interesting thing to follow up. If someone, Christine, if you manage to set that up, then I'd be willing to join you.
Great. Well, thank you. I was going to actually think about reaching out to Rex. So I'm glad. I will send an email out to you guys and then you can give me some more information. That would be wonderful. Would anybody else who took on some of those sites like to report any progress that they've made?
I can mention that I'm working on a couple. I put my name down for the bald eagle nest at Licking Hole Creek in Crozet area. And I contacted the Ravenna Sewer and Water Authority because the nest is supposed to be on their land. but I was able to determine that I would have to, it seems as though I would have to access the actual place, the actual trees, I guess, where the eagles nest through private land. And I was wondering if anybody on the committee who's been on the committee longer has been to that nest. You can see it. There's a connector trail in Crozet that's open, that's used by the public, and you can see the nest from there. But if I was to kind of steward the site, then I should actually be close to the trees to verify that the new subdivision that's going in there is not impacting it.
I actually know the landowner. He's the developer of that subdivision, and he lives on the, it's one of our clustered subdivisions, and he
Right.
kept and is living on the preservation tract, and he's now a member of the easement authority. So just check with me later.
Is that David? Sorry, that dog playing with a toy. Is it David Mitchell?
Yeah.
So you said he's on the easement authority?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So how should I proceed? Should I contact you or have you?
Yeah, just email me later, and we can figure out, either I can check with him first and let him know you're interested, or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
Dave-
thank you.
David Mitchell is a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, I knew when he bought the land, he planned all along to put his property under conservation easement. So yeah, I figured he was, but I didn't want to just call him up out of the blue and go, hey, I want to walk on your property to see the eagle nest.
But he's been through a lot with that, so he's really familiar with the issue, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with him.
Okay, thanks. Another site I signed up for is the, oh boy, what's the official term? The trail that is in Key West, the Key West subdivision. And Ruth graciously offered to update me on a lot of the back history on that. And sorry, my schedule got crazy this week, so we haven't scheduled anything yet, but Ruth and I are going to get together and talk about that, so I know how to move forward. And Christine and I talked, and she had a great idea about potentially seeing if there's a way to garner interest among the neighborhood or the neighbors, to get them to actually like take on managing the trail, to not just pull invasives, because everybody gets so sick of that concept, but also just like kind of keeping up with what's there and what's happening. And we know Ruth lives in the neighborhood and she knows a lot of the neighbors, so she and I really need to connect and start talking about some of the options.
Great, thanks, Leah. Yeah, and you were on this list. I just didn't say your name, but thank you. And then I know Bruce, he's really lucky because he lives really close to Arrowwood, right? And so, Bruce, I don't know if you want to report anything or.
I don't have anything new to report. I mean, Kate's been on that property, walk on part of that property, at least on the top. And I also signed up for another property which is close by. I didn't sign up for any properties that I own. That sounded nice. And there's also one that's close by as well, not very far from Arrowhead, but on the other side of 29, down closer to Plank Road, or Red Hill Road, I guess it's called. Emma, I think, knows where that is because she drives by there frequently, but I haven't made any contacts since I signed up.
Is it the Walnut?
And I think that's the Red Hill wetlands, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Lonnie, you know the contact over there, right?
Yes, I
Lonnie's
do.
gonna-
The contact, his name is Ron Brunk, and many of us have been out. We've had several Natural Heritage Committee trips out there in the past, including one with a board of supervisor, or at least, I mean, maybe more than one board of supervisor member. But he's amenable to people visiting. It's actually really close to a good time to go there. I have to check my dates, but it might be that that one of the species of interest is blooming pretty soon. Yeah, it's an interesting site. It's worth a visit. Certainly the swamp rose is probably blooming. And that's in itself is impressive to see like hundreds of Rosa palustris blooming all at once. That's kind of impressive.
Neat.
Okay.
All right.
His
Thank you.
contact information should be in the spreadsheet
Yeah.
on the drive.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
pretty sure it is. All right. Well, thank you. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add in terms of important sites.
I do. I'm actually in, so I don't know if my name got put next to it. You can put my name next to it. I was trying to find the spreadsheet and I couldn't find it. You can put Sugar Hollow my name next
Okay.
to Sugar Hollow, since I live there anyway. But we did discover a native Philadelphus inodorus, which until a few years ago wasn't even listed for Albemarle County, but we found a site for that species along Sugar Hollow Road. I contacted the landowner. The landowner didn't know that the plant was there. So I let them know about the importance of the plant. And Sharon and I keyed it out, which involves counting stamens, which is a lot of fun. So there's that, and then also there's another rare plant, golden club, that occurs in Sugar Hollow. Unfortunately, the property where that occurs, it looks like there's been a lot of understory clearing along the river. I mean, so along the stream there within the water protection ordinance buffer. So I don't know if that's impacted that plant or not, but there's been some other like issues with stream buffers and other things going on in Sugar Hollow. And I think various people have been aware of that, engaged. I think there's some board of supervisor members have been in the county stormwater, people have been engaged in that. It's always complex because some of the properties involved are agricultural, as to whether the activities in question are exempt or not. But that's for my update about Sugar Hollow. They also updated these signs. If you go to Sugar Hollow now, you'll see some big signs that say that mention that the Mormons River is a designated scenic river, which it has been for quite a while. They just got around to putting up the signs, I guess.
Nice. That's a great report. Wonderful.
Hey, Lonnie, what's the status of the concept of blocking off the Sugar Hollow parking area and make people park up by the dam?
My understanding that's still going to happen. But they're doing some repair work on the dam right now. And so nothing's going to happen until they're done with the repair work on the dam. But it does look, because they're using the area that will be the new parking lot as sort of a staging area for the dam equipment, repair equipment.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, they're doing some, but my understanding that is the plan. I don't know. I still don't know a lot of details about it. It would be nice to, because it's a Charlottesville, it's a weird thing where Charlottesville actually owns the property, and even though it's in the county. So I don't know if there's a way to get like Chris Jensick or someone in Charlottesville City Parks to come talk to us about Sugar Hollow, but that would be another good thing to do.
Well, thank you. Does anybody else have anything else that they want to report related to the important sites? Well, I just want to take a minute. I want to welcome back Kenan. We haven't seen you in a long time, and we're really happy to see you today. And great to have you back.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back. Actually, I could probably talk to somebody at the city. I'm going to see them soon about if there is a particular question about Sugar Hollow. I couldn't hear Lonnie exactly what he was saying, but I'm happy to follow up with that if there's at Parks and Rec. Would that be the people?
Yeah, it'd be nice to get to find out who's involved. If there's an actual plan on paper for Sugar Hollow, I I mean, we've heard various anecdotal things that there's a plan to create a parking lot at the base of the dam. And some other things. I haven't seen any plans on paper. And as someone who's actually a neighbor on Sugar Hollow, there's been no community outreach about a plan either.
Right.
So it would be nice to talk to someone in parks planning and see if there's actually some kind of plan.
Yeah, but and in particular, that's because you're finding some rare or unique plants there, and are just interested in there's the pretext for that is we just like to know what's going on as far as the Natural Heritage Committee.
Well, the Mormons River is a designated scenic river and was always the Sugar Hollow corridor was identified long ago in the original biodiversity action plan as a special spot.
Right.
It's also been, there's been a lot of the place is kind of being loved to death, particularly above the. And so that's been a big concern of the county, and it's been a big concern of the neighbors. And so there's been a lot of interest in sort of like finding out what the plan is to stop some of the big impacts that have been going on there. It's also been a big thing for emergency vehicles. Like they've had to, they've had several issues where university students have gotten injured and they can't get EMTs up there. So anyway, there's a lot of interest from a lot of different people in finding out what the plan is to address the.
Good. Well, that seems like enough to ask about. And yeah, because it would be great to get the parking down below the dam so that there's just not that mass of cars that's driving all over that interior. But
yeah, and Ken and we actually we wrote a letter. And it's I'll send it to you, a copy of it, where we had made some recommendations, and you can kind of see, we sort of hashed out the things that we wanted to make recommendations on. So I think that might be useful for you to look at.
Yeah, and as I recall, one of the recommendations was to not just think exclusively about just that little area where people visit around the reservoir, but to really consider the whole roadway, as since it is a scenic river, it's highly used by runners and cyclists, the entire road is a greenway. And to have some real planning for that road as a greenway, to think about, if you had a massive increase of car traffic on a road, I'm sure there'd be a VDOT study of that car traffic. But when you have a massive increase of bicycle or walking and running traffic, for some reason, no one does a study to think about how to accommodate that traffic. But yeah, I could go on further, but I won't.
Oh, okay.
Well, I understand. I think, it's had a huge, 30 or 40 years ago when I went, was going there, it was a quarter of 20% of the amount of people that are there now. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll probably follow up with that shortly. So I'll hopefully have some information.
I
think Chris is the right person to talk to. I haven't heard anything semi-official about that plan for moving the parking and all that in probably 3 years, but Chris was the person who was in charge of it back then.
There was discussion among county supervisors on that, and my understanding was similar to Lonnie's, that it's simply waiting for the construction to complete before they can do anything.
It'd be nice to know if they have a plan to do. If there's a plan sitting there somewhere, it'd be nice to know what it is.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know, Scott, I don't know if there's any, you more involved in urban planning. I don't know if the parks planning people or if there's any planning for the road in general. I think there's been it feels like there's been a general attitude that, well, since the reservoir is Charlottesville property, that Charlottesville will do the planning and somehow Charlottesville solve this. But I would love to see some planning involved for the road itself. To talk about some of the larger issues, because really the whole road itself is a greenway, whether anyone wants to. And when you look at, there's these great resources where you can see heat maps of where running and cycling traffic are. And the you can see what I call natural greenways in the county, of where people are really heavily using roads for running or cycling or walking. And it's been my feeling for a long time that we need to take account of that data. Like, that data needs to be included in planning. As I said, we include car traffic in planning. Why don't we include running and cycling and walking traffic in planning? But
All right. Well, Kenan, thank you for passing that on to Chris, and we look forward to hearing back from you.
Yep.
You learn what you learned from that, and carrying forward some of these great ideas that Lonnie has offered up here.
Mhm.
So, and welcome Nancy as well. So what I'm going to do is we'll do a report out from the various committees or the groups that we have. And so nobody was able to meet at all, but Bruce and Emma and I went to the Scottsville Pollinator Festival, and we spoke to the public and not amongst each other. So, but we had a really wonderful time. And I don't know if anybody, Bruce or Emma, you guys speak to it. How was it? Emma,
Wonderful.
take it away.
It was wonderful. It was really fun. And I feel like we made lots of connections with like there were a lot of different master gardeners from different counties, like Fluvanna master gardeners. And one of the things that was really, one of the connections that was really awesome to make was with Laura, who's on the Scottsville
Council for the Arts?
Yeah, the town council.
Oh, town council.
Yeah. And she is working on a project connecting all the parks and natural areas in Scottsville and trying to make sort of greenways going through and walking paths, connecting them all. And she was interested in having our support on that project and meeting at some point. So yeah, it was really wonderful, and lots of kids were there and interested, and we had like skulls and flowers and little things. So the people walking by stopped, and we got to just interact with people. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. I don't know if you want to add anything, Bruce, but.
No, it was great. That's all I can say. It was wonderful to be able to interact with public outdoors in like forever.
Yeah.
And besides the Natural Heritage Committee, that aspect of it was what was most notable.
Yeah. And the cool thing is Serena had the Albemarle County Let's Talk van. And so they were right next to us. So it was just a great partnership that we had. And we had this great tent, and we actually had these big maps that David Hanna had printed up. So we could point out the conservation focus areas, and I had a copy of the map. So I hope that we have an opportunity to do this more often, because it was really great interacting with the public. And I think there is some real value in that. And some of the things we were able to bring with us was this is the final edition of Emma's conservation mowing poster that is printed and posted over at Darden Cow and at Walnut Creek. And there's a nice little QR code that links to the state parks and their program for conservation mowing. It kind of gives a really nice list of why we should be okay when the grass gets taller. And so really excited about that.
How can we buy a dozen of those?
Well,
can you send it out to the group? Can we have
yeah,
it?
well, I'll send it out to the group, and let's get them up in all our county parks. And hopefully, we can reach out to the county public, our Albemarle County Public Schools. They manage 631 acres of land in Albemarle County. So,
Community College, Piedmont Virginia Community College.
Oh, good idea, Peggy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be awesome. Somebody
Yeah.
should have that conversation. with
High
them.
school. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should make sure to put a copy of that up on the Google Drive.
Yeah, I think I'll make sure that it's up there, that it is really awesome. And so that kind of, I just want to talk a minute about, I had a conversation with Gabe Daly, and he is the new climate action manager or climate resource manager, I think it is. Don't think I'm saying that correctly, am I, Scott? His title. But
I think you're close enough.
Yeah,
I don't remember
yeah.
it exactly either.
But at any rate, it was really exciting because I shared some of the things that we have been talking about in terms of reducing mowing. And we talked a lot about the land that's managed by the Albemarle County Public Schools in terms of what are the possibilities of planting more trees and creating really some outdoor classroom space. And I know that I visited Walton Middle School, which is out in southern Albemarle, and it is just a biological desert because the grass gets mowed really, really short and there are very few trees on the property. So we had a great discussion about, ways that these goals can overlap with the climate action plan.
Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries has funding for things like rain gardens for schools. Actually, at Crozet Elementary, they have one that was funded by the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. Their only requirement, and it's a good requirement, is that the schools integrate it into their environmental education. So that there need to be like lesson plans that the schools use to sort of integrate, like it's not just like left there and
right
forgotten.
So the rain barrel would have to, in the case of Walton, would have to go to an actual garden, and one doesn't exist right now. So
well, that's what the funding is for. It would be funding to actually build an actual rain garden.
Oh, the rain garden itself. Yeah. Oh, I was thinking rain barrel. That would be great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I have I can look up the name of the person. Her name is at the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it.
Yeah. So we had that discussion, and then in terms, I really am excited because I printed out the landowner welcome letter that Michael had done such a great job with. And I was also able to get, I was able to get some copies of this great brochure that I love so much from the Native Plant Society. And they sent me like a whole container of them. I gave them a little donation. So in the mail, there are 10 letters. All the landowners that purchased property in 2021, if they purchased land over 20 acres or more, and the transfer happened, it wasn't a $0 transfer, we got all of them, all 10 of them. And so those letters are in the mail. So just want to, woohoo, got that done. So thank you for everybody who was involved with that. And I did get some more feedback on our landowner resource document. And there's a few things that I'm hoping to add to that because I had gotten some feedback from Rep. And he also pointed me to the native plant, the website on the county that is concerned native plants, and it's really great. It's got some great resources. I'm going to make a few additions to that. But that is all that I have to report for the education and outreach. I don't know if any of the other members would like to add anything to that.
We got to meet Emma's brothers and her mother. They're real people.
Yeah. And a really beautiful dog. And her husband.
And her husband, right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Bruce.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to see.
I want to just echo what Christine said. Like, it's amazing now that we have all of the maps and everything, so that it'll be easier to go and show up at events that are happening in the county and just, be there to talk to people and get people involved and curious about the world around them.
Yeah. I think that there are some opportunities perhaps at some of our farmers markets. So that might be something that we can do and have an opportunity to talk to people there. Maybe the one in Crozet would be a good place to go. And even the Charlottesville City Market, definitely people from Albemarle come in to that.
The one at X Park is really full.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, I guess they're both open now, or the whole thing is going simultaneously. The
Yeah.
City Market in the regular parking lot, and then the X Park is stayed there too.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So,
that's a good idea.
yeah, we'll put it on our to-do list. So I want to move on to Leah. If you have anything you want to report on with the wildlife corridors. Oh, it's Leah. Leah dropped out. She's not here. I don't think. She's missing. All right. All right. Well, we'll, sorry to miss her. So Lonnie, you said that you wanted to report, talk about the native plant database. This was probably a good time for you to talk, share.
Yes. So I have some exciting news about that. As you know, I've been working with Rep on that. I developed a little beta of the site, but we heard about this great group called Coding for Charlottesville that has computer programmers and other IT professionals that donate volunteer time towards local governments and nonprofits in the city and well in the area. And so we applied as a potential project to that group. And the good news is they accepted our project to the native plants database. And we now have a team of 6 volunteers, professional IT developers that are will be working with us on not including myself, and which will to help develop version 2.0 of the native plants database. So that's very exciting. I mean, it's very exciting for something like this to get 1 volunteer, but to get 6 volunteers is just absolutely fantastic. So I'll keep you updated on that, but I think there's an enormously bright future ahead for that project.
That's great news, Lonnie.
Could you explain to some of us what this
is? What the native plant database is, Lonnie? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we could probably even, let me see if I can pull it up. Is there?
Oh, I actually have. Let me see.
Can you share the website?
Let's see. I've got the native. Yeah, let me go ahead and.
But essentially, it's a database that was developed. One of the big hurdles people have said in using native plants is that people, we needed a database that people could say, like, if someone was building a rain garden or a biofilter, or or just the public was looking like, what can I plant in my yard? There's a lack of good information. So we developed a database that would have where people could do a search and return detailed information about different native plants, regional native plants that'd be appropriate for their site. And the idea was to have something that could be used by both with like developers and landscape architects, but also the general public.
I'm trying to see where it is on this website.
There we go. It's right. See, you'd think it'd be under database. I mean, why didn't he put it on his own databases?
Yeah. So here is our.
So if you just do search, I just say, I mean, from Google, I just do Piedmont native plants. No, I just do Piedmont native plant database. I just do a search. I mean, I'm sure it's on there somewhere, but I can't scroll.
Yeah. Native plants, guide for landscaping.
It's the 4th one down right there. Is that it?
Oh, is that the guide or is that the actual?
Oh, that's the guide. Never mind. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. So if I just do Piedmont native plants database. Yeah, so it's here, I'll put the, well, I guess I'm allowed to use the chat. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the chat.
Let's see, download.
Oh, you cannot
Oh, there
use
it
the
is.
chat.
Oh my,
Yeah. Oh, here
The
it is.
book did.
No,
That's the book
no, that's
did.
that's the book.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
book.
Can someone just
Yeah.
Google, if you just
Huh.
open Google?
oh, here
Right
it
there.
is.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm gonna
there's a-
make, I hate to interrupt, but
There it
it's
is.
getting ready to storm here in Lynchburg. I'm gonna make Scott the co-host in case the storm is worse than I think it's gonna be and I get knocked off so that you all could keep meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Sorry for interrupting. Go back. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Fine,
Sorry
thank
about.
you.
We may
Yeah,
get
my
into-
computer is not liking me sharing my screen and doing the searching at the same time. But I think that maybe Lonnie, we can send that around so that whatever that link is. But I think that is great news getting that database and especially having that help to make sure that it's updated. Because this is the database that we're hoping that landscapers will use right in the developed areas in order to meet the 80% native, when they do their plantings, it needs to be 80% native plants. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, technically that's not true. So for any county projects, they need to be 80% native.
Okay.
But for the development community, what you have is you have a list of approved plants for development projects, which includes both natives and non-natives. And so, I mean, our hope is to make that list mostly native plants, but they would, but one of the resources that people are sent, or at least my understanding is that when someone applies for a project, it's one of the native plant database is one of the resources that are sent, and we've the understanding that everything on that list is explicitly allowed as a plant. It's a little hard to explain them.
And one thing that
Scott
I want
might be able
to
to do a better job of explaining the policy than me.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's less of a you are required to do this, but for projects that have to go through architectural review board or other government processes, I mean, basically the idea is that we make that resource available so people know when your project comes before the planning commission or the architectural review board, people know that this is a priority of the county and that using native plants is something that's likely to be viewed in a favorable light by those boards.
Also, for projects that don't require approval, legislative approval from the ARB or the board of supervisors, if you've got a good plant list that has a lot of natives on it, and for all the projects that are by right projects that just require a site plan, but that site plan includes a landscaping plan. So you can sort of control the content of the landscaping you get even in by right commercial development by having a good plant list.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to add that the Piedmont Master Gardeners are about to start this outreach program to the area nurseries where they're going to, we've got these native plant lists, a good list of plants, and let's say if you have a dry area, if you have a wet area, or plants that you could, if you take out your invasive plants, what can you replace them with? And so they're just starting this campaign to reach out to nurseries and give them a brochure, volunteer to actually put stickers on the plants which are native species so that it's more clear for the customer customer to know what is native and what isn't.
Well-
So it's a whole campaign of outreach, which I think is going to be hopefully helpful. And it's part of this whole Plant Northern Piedmont Native.
Okay, so good. So they're working with, unfortunately, I think I was going to ask whether they're part of the existing marketing partnership or not. It used to be Celia was in charge of that, and I haven't talked to. Does anyone know? I mean, I haven't heard who Celia's replacement is because I think she left.
I don't know, but it's definitely through that whole program. So it's really exciting to be part of that kickoff for this campaign in Albemarle County. So I will give you an update on how that goes.
Yeah, please do. I mean, the database itself was also created under the auspices of that campaign as well. And
sounds like the storm is coming.
Yeah, it's a weather
yeah,
alert.
sorry. Yeah, we got an alert on this side. So yeah, the campaign was created on the auspices of that marketing partnership. We just haven't, and I actually, it's a good reminder, I need to give an update to whoever the new contact person is. Once I figure out who that was, I've been meaning to send a note to Rex and ask them who the new person is.
Yeah, I don't know. So now, Leah, do you want to give an update on the wildlife corridors?
Sure, I can do that. I had to turn my video off. Got kicked out for a while because of the internet, whatever. Anyway, so I continue to work on 2 different corridor projects. The Bobcat Study for looking at the habitat that bobcat are using in Northwest Albemarle County. It's been on hold for a little bit because the professor at Virginia Tech actually ended up with shingles in his optic nerve. Think about painful. Yeah, right. Scott just did what I heard. So he was out of work for several weeks and just got back this week. So we are meeting with he and I and the guy from Smithsonian are having a joint meeting next Thursday, to get back into this. And in the meantime, I did speak with my contact who said she was pretty sure she had a donor who'd be interested in the project. But of course, I didn't know how much money the donor was interested in. So anyway, the Virginia Tech professor put together a budget, and anyway, we're working on it all. So the donor's been approached, I believe, but I'm not sure exactly how she's been approached. But anyway, so that's moving. The other project is looking at the intersection at Highway 240 and Highway 250 in Crozet, or really between Crozet and Ivy. And I've gotten huge amounts of information and found 2 programs now that would provide funding for revegetating with native plants after VDOT changes the intersection, because they're going to change it to a roundabout. And the holdup for me, or what I was kind of waiting on, was to see if I could find anybody that knew the landowners there that own land along the Meachams River, because the area is a tremendous good habitat and openness for wildlife to move underneath the bridge that crosses the Meachams at that intersection. Sorry, I'm assuming everybody knows what I'm talking about. Most of you do. Anyway, great breakthrough in that a friend of mine knew somebody who's friends with the people that own the property. And so the contact and I talked today for quite a bit, and I updated her, and she's going to see about getting myself and the wife of the owner together for lunch. So that's great news. Oh, and by the way, it turns out the property owners, the land is in a trust, the land along the Meachams at this intersection. And I meant to recheck. I think it's like maybe only 20 acres or something, 20 to 40 acres. It wasn't enough for what a lot of people would consider enough land to be considered for conservation easement. And then as I was playing with the GIS map, oh, thank you, Albemarle County, for having good GIS maps. I realized that just 2 more lots north of that intersection, they own another 190 something acres along the Meachams River. And then in talking with the contact today, I found out they also own a bunch of land along Sugar Hollow somewhere. And I haven't gone in to look at the GIS yet, but I'm like, oh my gosh. And it turns out the woman, the wife of the landowner, has been very active in the community, not with environmental issues, but other social issues. So we will see, but it's looking, good. So now my focus is changing somewhat from looking at the vegetation in the area to going back to the concept of conservation easements. So anyway, so we'll see another piece of that as I spoke with Kevin McDermott, who's the transportation coordinator for Albemarle County. And I told him some of the things I was looking at hoping to get done or hoping to get people to do at that intersection. Another piece is getting plantings, native plantings in the roundabout that's going to go in at the intersection. And he knows the VDOT project engineer that I had been talking with. And Kevin understands what I want to do. In fact, he said that a number of years back, he and some other people from the county had also been concerned about deer collisions around that intersection. And Scott's nodding his head, he was probably involved. They tried to figure out what could be done, and just like me, ran up against a wall and trying to figure out any options for trying to keep deer or people from hitting deer at that intersection. So anyway, Kevin's on board with the native plant concept, and it's all just moving along really well. I'm just really thrilled.
Good.
And Leah and everybody, just for a quick reminder, whenever you see a spot that looks like a good place for a conservation easement, but you might think it's kind of on the small side, remember that our conservation easement authority is a lot more flexible on property size with easements than some other holders are, because we're more focused on protecting specific resources than we are necessarily just getting acreage. So we've got quite a range. We have easements from 9 acres to 4,500, I think it is. But we have several that are quite small, but if there's something important there, then it's worth doing it.
So this is Albemarle County, what, PRC something?
It used to be the PRFA. It's now the Albemarle Conservation Easement Authority.
Okay, the one Lonnie was talking about. Okay. Well, and I'd also found out and reported, I think at the last meeting, Scott, that I also found out Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation Easement is actually wanting to do smaller acreage easements. So that's really good to know. Because what I want to do before I talk to the landowners, I wanted to have a toolkit with me to be able to offer them, I mean, not that it's up to me, but to offer them awareness or information on different opportunities that could basically reward them for making a good choice for protecting wildlife along the Meachams River.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. You do have to have it. You do have to at least have a division right to get a conservation easement.
That's true, except maybe in the case of a riparian easement. But I think any easement holder is going to want to see their easement eliminate some development potential. But having said that, we have some, like I said, some 9, 10, 11 acre properties that have, some to quite a bit of development potential, but they also have a good forested floodplain or something. So it's worth doing. If you look at the resources on the site and kind of the surrounding area, what other protected land might be nearby.
So if someone has a riparian area, like let's say along the Meachams River, but yet they don't have any development rights, it's not a necessary definite no that they can't get an easement through Albemarle.
Well, there's rarely a definite no. It's always a judgment call. But I don't think we've ever had that happen, that we've gotten a proposal from a property that had no development potential or no development rights, but it could be done. It's something I hope we'll branch out into eventually, to do, easements that are more directly resource protection than they are development elimination, but it hasn't really happened yet.
Thanks. That's interesting information. I will say, as someone who's a director on the Stormwater Conservation District and also on the foundation for the Thomas Jefferson Stormwater Conservation Foundation, we, you know, as I mentioned, we do hold easements. There's some constraints to that. We do require money to, you know, from the person requesting the easements, you know, for maintaining and inspecting that easement forever. So that's been a barrier to a lot of people getting an easement from us. There have been some sort of tentative discussions with the county about, like, you know, particularly in regards to the rural water protection initiatives that have been discussed, is like, is there some way for the county to work together with the Stormwater Conservation District to maybe handle some of those upfront costs, or some way to partner together? So we haven't really had any more than sort of tentative, like what if type discussions, but it is an avenue for further research, of course.
That's something that Kim is looking into as part of her stream health project. So I'm sure she knows quite a bit more about that than I do, but as you say, it's under discussion.
I've been meaning to sit down with Kim and talk, Kim and our district manager, talk about that.
If I can ask one quick question, not to take everybody's time, but maybe it's hopeful to other people too. Since Scott and Lonnie are on the call at the same time, is it possible usually under a conservation easement to include land that's not connected? Like if there's two smaller lots in between two larger that's owned by somebody else? Can you combine them if it's the same owner, but the lots are not contiguous, but they're within a half a mile?
You might end up just doing those as separate easements. Again, that's one of those odd situations that I can't remember ever actually happening, at least with us. But, you know, we have had single owners do multiple easements with us, but it isn't really a single easement if it's separated by a significant area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Leah, you mentioned something about resources to give to a homeowner or when you're meeting with someone. Have we ever put together that list? Is there ever something that, does that exist? I'm remembering about a year ago when we were talking about that.
The list does now exist, and the education group has worked on it, and then actually Michael it was just put it really nicely organized in different categories, and I can send that out. I'm going to make some additions to it. Rep had given some suggestions on that, and they were really good suggestions, and maybe even to include landscapers and also linking to the native plant website on the Albemarle County website. So, but I will send that to you, Ken.
All those potential easements and federal, state, county options for homeowners to put aside land or conserve land. It's so many different. There's so much minutia of different things, and that'd be great to have it in one place.
Yeah, and it's nicely organized actually on the Albemarle County website. It's pretty well laid out.
Oh, well, you could just send me the link.
Yeah.
But it seems like that'd be useful for all of us to have, just as a, as a sheet.
Yeah.
It is also always worth mentioning to people, though, that you don't need to know every resource that exists, every program that exists out there. They're always changing. And one of the most helpful things that you can do is to contact someone like the Stormwater Conservation District and have a conservation plan made for your property. And they will tell you what programs you qualify for.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, you don't necessarily have to, as a landowner, ferret out all those things yourself. You can, there are groups that will do that for you. The PEC will do that for you as well.
Yeah.
Lonnie, did you say the Soil and Water Conservation District does that as well?
Yeah, we do conservation plans for people.
Okay.
Actually, in some localities, it's required to have a conservation plan in order to get land use valuation.
Okay. Is there a cost for that, for the conservation plan?
Yeah, I believe there's I'll have to go check to see what it is, but yeah, I think there is a cost associated with that, but I don't think it's a huge thing. I'll check on that and find out what that is.
Thanks. I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, it depends. Like if there's, I mean, I think staff, I mean, like to have someone from our staff just come out to your property and talk to you, that doesn't cost anything. That's just technical assistance. We do that all the time with the VCAP programs and the ag programs. But if we're actually writing a plan, that might be a different story.
Okay.
All right. I think that this was what was on our agenda. We were going to have a report out from each of the committees, each of these are working groups, and the policy working group has not had an opportunity to meet, I think, in several months. And so what we wanted to do was to dedicate the rest of the meeting time for them to be able to have that meeting. And so I just want to invite everybody, if you would like, I think that's okay with the group, right? If people stay in and listen in, if you'd like. But I think at this point, we're going to just turn it over to the policy group. And those of you who are ready to sign off for the rest of the evening, you have an invitation to do so. Unless anybody else has anything they want to add or any requests. Next, for our August meeting, I had spoken to Rod Walker, and he's going to speak to us about the spotted lanternfly and what, some hope that maybe that Albemarle County can take some preventative action in relation to the ailanthus.
Does it hit Atlantis?
The ailanthus, or ailanthus, yeah.
Good thing, right?
Yeah, so it's nice to be able to, knock out two birds with one stone.
Yeah, but it also hits grapes, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing that
All we need is another vineyard here. Well, I wanted to mention last night on the Virginia Homegrown, I should have sent a note out. Keith Nevison did an interview with Black Bear. He visited the site, the composting site. And so anyway, they usually post it on their Facebook page. They live stream it on Facebook at 8:00 on the last Tuesday of the month. But then in a couple of days, it'll be on their Facebook page. So I can remind you to look for it, because I think you'd enjoy seeing it. Because I visited the Black Bear site, and in Cremora, I think it is. And so, and with Eric or whatever. And so anyway, I'll send you the link and you can just kind of scan through the show sometime. And,
yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. Monticello is trying to do it with Black Bear for their new cafe, but apparently they're trying to do it with, a compost bin out in the public area, and people just don't understand it. So apparently we've been blackballed by Black Bear, I think.
You have to use all your,
yeah.
You have to serve everything in a compostable container.
Well, they do, but there's some stuff gets snuck in. But I reminded them of how hard we worked at the Harvest Festival, how many miles we walked, just monitoring all those bins, just, like 10 miles, I think, in an afternoon. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. So, but I might take off now too. So I'll be here for the for August. So.
All right.
Great.
Jane, I have a comment if I could.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this gets talked about in policy or not, But this huge infrastructure plan that's being batted around in Congress right now is going to happen. And it's going to be well over $1 trillion, from what I understand. And I'm wondering if anybody has thought about what the impacts are going to be to Albemarle County and the rollout impacts to areas that the committee's interested in. And that may be something we want to take a long-term view of and,
Take advantage of, yeah.
and be prepared for, because there may be some projects, some grants, and some impacts that will need to be assessed, so that, you know, the benefits of the plan don't overrun what the committee's plan is. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Well, that's a nice lead up to the policy committee. I'll go. So I'm going to officially convene the start of the policy committee. I'm in quick answer to that. What I would say is that luckily a lot of the funds for things like transportation are decided at the local level. So as people look at things like infrastructure, I mean, you know, for example, there's a transportation priority, like a road paving priority list that gets circulated once a year. Well, actually, they circulate it more than just once, but it gets approved once a year. There's several things like that where people decide various infrastructure priorities. Usually a lot of that, the local government has decided is included in those. And so I think we've already been pretty well engaged in some of these issues of how the county plans for infrastructure. The county itself, their development plan already sort of, by having a growth area and a rural area, they've already sort of designated that we want to keep improvements into the growth area, and we want to minimize improvements of minimize infrastructure that's built in the rural areas. So, I mean, one of the biggest policies, I guess, that we've discussed a lot in terms of that is rural road paving. We've talked about policies, improving the county's policies for rural road paving. Currently, there's a fairly extensive list of roads to be paved in the county. And it is our, I could pull up that document at some point. It's on the conservation policies folder. Let's see if I can pull it up.
Can we say rural road non-paving?
Yeah.
Depends on which set of landowners you ask.
Yeah. I thought it was in here. Conservation mowing, subdivision size, correspondence. Go in here. I have it somewhere. I thought it was in this folder. I don't see it in here. But we do have a list of proposals in terms of rural road paving. And part of those involve things like, currently the way that it's working, it takes only one person to get a road on the paving list. But it takes pretty much everyone on that road to get a road off the paving list once it's on there. So it's really difficult to get. There's one road on there that's comes up every year, and every year right next to it says neighbors object to this road being on the list, and yet it's still on the list. So it's really hard to get them off once they're on. So that's one thing I think, you know, the shift needs to happen the other way. I would personally like to see all proposed road paving projects. And I think as one of our proposals was to go to through the planning commission first and treat it as a rezoning, because effectively it is. I mean, when you pave a road through a large rural area, you are enabling those large areas of farmland to become to be developed at higher density than they are when they're unpaved. because, you know, no one's going to build a big subdivision on a rural, I mean, generally speaking, no one's going to build a big subdivision on a rural gravel road. So you're effectively increasing the density. So I'd love to see it like, we'd love to see that go through the, have the planning commission actually look at that before it goes to the board of supervisors. Some of the recommendations by this committee have already happened. The county did create a do not pave list. That was a big step in the right direction. There are several roads that would get on the list. There'd be a big neighborhood campaign to get them off. Finally, they get off, and then someone proposed to put them back on again. They get on, and so finally, we have a list of roads to just don't pave. So that's been a big help. But I will try to find that document and send it out to everyone. Any other questions on that? The policy committee were guided by this spreadsheet. This is our master list of conservation ideas. And so if there's an idea that we think is a really great conservation policy, then hook or crook, we really need to get it on this list. And I hope that everyone has had a chance to look through this list. And you can see, for example, see if I can find what we're just talking about. Yeah, conservation of gravel roads. You can see that on line 24. And Scott, since you're on this call too, I think we really would appreciate the input of staff too. If which ones of these that staff finds would be the most effective for us to work on first. If there's ones that staff feels would be a high priority, we'd really like to have staff's input on that.
Well, I'm sure we'd be happy to help. I mean, I don't want to, I'm just here temporarily, and Kim would understand this better than I do, but I'm happy to help. I'm still trying to find out at what point we're going to be updating the rural area portion of the comp plan as part of the upcoming process. I'm hoping to be involved in that process, but at the very least, I can help find out when that's going to happen. And hopefully a lot of these ideas will be addressed in the review of the update of that chapter.
Yeah, I've been having that. I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the items I felt that we should discuss today. You know, I keep hearing about the comprehensive plan update, but haven't really heard, you know, about the rural area or natural resources yet. So certainly the moment you hear anything, and I imagine you'll hear before we do, then let us know when those discussions start happening.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll hear before or after you, but I'm in the process of trying to find out, and it seems like it's it's a complex process, and there are an awful lot of pieces to it. And of course, there's a lot of focus on the development area sections. So people are working through how and when to do each of those. And I'm still trying to find out when we're going to fit the rural and natural resources chapters in as part of that process.
Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate you bringing those to us. Well, one topic that floated up that I think we could focus on today was people wanted to talk about land use valuation and our current policies. So I'm trying to remember who brought that up. Was it you, Kate, that brought that up as a priority today?
It was Christine and myself. Both of us had been kind of rabble-rousing about it.
So true.
So there's a couple things that we've learned about this. We have learned that, I mean, through staff comments, I mean, from Kim's discussions with the assessor's office and from other conversations, that the policy as it stands does not, in terms of wildlife habitat, it does not disqualify someone who is currently in a program in a state or federal wildlife habitat program, so you're not disqualified. However, there are some unanswered questions. One of the things that was a little concerning is that there are other criteria, just the way they're, let me see if I can pull that language up real quick.
Connie, while you're doing that, I have another meeting at 7, so I will have to leave and listen and check in on the minutes to find out, because I'm very interested in this discussion.
Okay. All right, so I'll try to keep this quick. The relevance section really is agriculture. I don't know if everyone can see that. So you do see that in here, land use for agriculture must consist of a minimum of 5 acres and meet prescribed standards for bona fide production of sale livestock, or receive rent payments under a federal or state soil water conservation program, such as CRP or CREP. I have some issues with how this is written. I wish that they would fix this language to match what the enabling language says. This still kind of makes it sound like it has to be a program through DEQ, DECR, or through NRCS, and it doesn't seem to acknowledge that soil and water conservation programs also would qualify. So, I mean, this really stays federal, state, or local, or just soil and water conservation programs and drop the federal and state.
And Lonnie, could you actually reach out to the assessor's office and make that comment to them? I mean, I think that that would be an important change to be made. Can you just go ahead and do the outreach on that?
Well, I think at the end, what we should decide as a group is come upon a list of suggestions that we would like to make that work within the enabling language that would perhaps improve this policy.
Well, I am still trying to actually get the actual versions. Christina, I copied you on that again today, of what the office itself believes are all the relevant pieces of code and local local standards. So unfortunately, the website had gaps. It just hadn't been completed. And in responding to me about the pieces in the FAQ that were, supposed to be there for someone to learn about, all I got was, to the main index page. And so it's been very difficult to get information, because I was just hoping to see what the county would provide to me, just as an interested person, about information about the program. So there are certainly things that could be suggested, or just things they may not be aware of with the website transfer. I mean, that's a huge project that could be updated to make it easier for people to gather relevant information before they have to ask questions.
I totally agree. I think if there's updates that could be made to that, it's confusing the way it is here.
Yeah.
Another issue I have is this language: lakes and land under lakes and ponds is generally included as agricultural land. That's not what the enabling legislation says. The enabling legislation says that they must be lakes and ponds specifically supporting agriculture. So recreational lakes should be explicitly excluded from land use, but here they're saying that they're generally included. And that I find really problematic. And it's a loophole that you often see exploited in the rural area. You see people building quote unquote farm ponds in their subdivisions, and they don't have any buffers on them. And with the increased issues we're having in the county with toxic algae blooms and other things, I think we really need to get the word out that recreational ponds should not be, they shouldn't be excluded from the water protection ordinance, and they shouldn't be included in land use valuation. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, clarity is only going to help. Yeah. With understanding, education, a potential for enforcement in situations where it can be. So agreed completely, and I'm more than glad to help with review of language. I just really do want to very first read the actual determining language. So any and all pieces I can get, I would love to read that in its entirety.
This is another problematic piece. The use must be shown to support the $1,000 annual minimum gross sailor value. In some ways, I don't mind this. I think it's, if we enforce that, it's a good check to make sure that people actually deserve the tax break. In practice, the problem is if you have a landowner that's gone into a conservation program like CRP or CREP, where they're, part of those programs are they are voluntarily taking less productive lands out of production so they can so they can be used for wildlife habitat and soil and water conservation. So they are reducing potential sales off that property. And what I've heard from the assessor's office and from county staff is that if that drops them below that $1,000 amount, then they have to pay rollback taxes. And that seems to me to be counterintuitive, and it seems to be contrary to what the state really wants out of these programs. It's discouraging people from adopting conservation practices because they're afraid, well, if I don't make $1,000, then I'm going to have to face rollback taxes. So
and that was part of the discussion, that part of why I think Christine and I entered into this discussion is that juxtaposition of cross purposes. If we're trying to conserve and we're trying to create habitat which supports biodiversity and supports better climate solutions, we're going backwards.
Yeah, and I think that when Kim did talk to the county assessor, I think there was some clarity about this, so that maybe perhaps the language just needs to be clarified here, and so that because in fact, right, that they're not going to penalize people in fact, but you're right, there needs to be more clarity here, and the information needs to be conveyed.
And am I correct in understanding that it is the state code that's going to control on ability to increase, I think, programmatic support for the habitat side versus the production side? Okay.
That's very true.
Yeah,
but a couple things. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I should have brought up the copy of the state code, the current state code as it stands.
Do you just have the number that you can give me so I'm sure I'm reading the right section?
Let's see if does it actually reference the enabling? All right, here we go. Actually, they have the title, the Code of Virginia. Let me actually, I can actually pull this up real quick.
Scott, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Oh, just a couple of things. One is that it's unfortunate that Kim can't be here tonight because I know she's had several discussions with the county assessor quite recently. So she may have updated information. So I'm just inclined to suggest that the approach that Kate's taking about trying to pull together all of the actual legal foundation of this so that everybody can see it and have an equal understanding of it, and to then base a recommendation for changes off of that is probably the best path. So between hopefully a good response to Kate's query and then Kim's meetings with the assessor, we can get enough of a base of understanding that we can determine what actually needs to be changed. Also, there's the problem with looking at the website, the explanatory website, is that I'm sure that does need to be rewritten, but even once it's rewritten, it's never going to cover all of the subtleties of these requirements from the state and the local tax ordinances. So you can't look at the informational website as a solid interpretation of the rules because it's always going to be a summary. So we're going to have to work from the actual ordinances There's no doubt that a website deserves to, or it needs to be clearer, but it might actually need to be shorter so it doesn't just open up questions and then not answer them.
And I mean, I've just come across almost 1,000 acres in southern Albemarle that's all under that. These 20+ acre lots are in ag, and they're getting the tax deferment, but they're not harvesting any hay, and most of what they've got is a lawn. And so, like, how
Even
can
if it
that-
was hay, it's hay that's going to waste most of the time.
yeah, they're not, they cut it, but they never bale it.
Yeah, it's a problem. You know, it's better now than it used to be back when, in the bad old days, when we didn't do revalidations and people would qualify once and then skate for 20 or 30 years. But
Definitely better.
yeah.
Well, I called the assessor's office today, and I'm not sure if it was the clerk said that property just been revalidated last year. So, yeah,
I don't know if there's
It's a
an appeals
mystery.
process for revalidations or anything like that. I know how this stuff works for zoning. I don't really know how it works for
Yeah.
taxation,
Yeah.
doing
Christine,
determinations
it
and
just
challenges.
sound like, I'm sorry, Scott.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a delay and I did not mean to talk over you. Christine, it just makes me feel like something is just off with that particular example. I would love to figure out what it is.
Yeah, well, I hope I get a response to figure out the mystery as well.
And do we have an actual definition for bona fide? I don't recall if that was ever, that may be a
I think there's
Yeah.
a zoning definition. I'm not sure if there's a taxation related definition. There must be. It's just not my field.
Yeah, I mean, at the state level, it's a big problem. I don't think, both in terms of like water protection and in terms of, zoning, and I mean, agriculture is just poorly defined. It's kind of a big problem in the state, and it's a huge loophole in many ways. And so,
amen.
It'd be nice to have a clear definition of agriculture, or at least allow localities to make their own definition. I mean, I think the use of the Schedule F form, I think that's a great way to determine whether something's agricultural or not.
Yeah.
If someone files a Schedule F, I'm good. They're agricultural. So if they don't, I have questions. So in the way this reads, if you say real estate devoted to agricultural use shall mean real estate devoted to the bona fide production for sale of plants and animals, products made from plants or animals to the real estate, they're useful to man, or, see, and here it's or, so this is a separate condition, or devoted to and meeting the requirements and qualifications for payments or other compensation pertinent to soil and water conservation programs under agreement with the state agency of the state or federal government. And so to me, it seems like that it's not an and, it's an or in the code. It says, so if, to me, the requirement of the $1,000 of production, that's the first part of this. And I think that if you meet the second part, you should be exempted from the $1,000.
So that buffer is the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, so if you were in a conservation program, I think that falls on the or side. You're devoted to and meeting the requirements. And here's the other piece I think that's really important. It doesn't say that you are receiving payments or that you're under an agreement. It says you're meeting the requirements and qualifications. And I think this is important because this gives latitude for people to certify that the voluntary practices they've done meet the qualifications of an existing program. So if you say like, listen, I didn't get money for EQIP, but I did the practice and I'm willing to go to the conservation district or to get a conservation plan, or I pay someone to certify that this practice that I did is a qualifying practice.
Do we have
That's,
planning available, like assistance for planning purposes? Say someone did that. They put in their own money to create whatever it was to meet the program specifications. Does the conservation district or someone locally with planning expertise, is that available to people? Do they have to pay for that?
well, someone asked that before already, like, is there a charge for conservation plans? And I don't know that currently. I should off the top of my head. I'm sorry that I don't, but I can get that answer very quickly from Anne.
I hope.
If we do, it's very small. It's probably, it's a
Okay.
nominal fee.
I would hope that that would be something that a locality or more would put money into. It just seems like that's another no-brainer to assist with the larger.
I think if we were to take on certification of people's properties for land use, I
Yeah.
think that that the district would most certainly want compensation for that service to cover staff time.
Would that come from a locality or would that need to come from individuals?
If it didn't come from the locality, it would need to come from individuals.
But the priority would hopefully
But-
be, and it, I don't,
Yeah, but given
Yeah.
the tax break that people are getting, it seems like, if the locality didn't do it, it seems like it would be in the individual's best interest to pay to have that done.
It would be similar to having like a forest plan.
Correct. Yeah, and there's a lot of localities that actually require a conservation plan to get. That's something that's allowed. Apparently, some localities require a conservation plan in order to get land use, to qualify for agricultural land use.
Lonnie, do you know which ones do?
I did. For some, I could be making this up. For some reason, I thought Loudon did, but I don't know, maybe.
Because if we could
Figure
look
that
at a
out.
model of that, I think that would really be useful. Because I think we really hit upon something here, is especially I'm thinking about these 1,000 acres of 20-acre lots where people are getting the tax break, but they're not really doing the right thing. They're just mowing every couple weeks all summer long. And if we can, they could do something that was actually useful in terms of wildlife habitat.
Well, there's kind of two pieces to that, though. And I mean, I completely agree. It would be much better to have people qualifying for a tax break by making an actual habitat benefit than for doing fake farming. But there's two pieces to that. And a lot of what Lonnie is talking about is how a program like CREP or something might affect your ability to qualify for the agricultural tax category. But that's mainly for kind of boundary case people who are just barely making that $1,000 minimum and might lose out because they do a stream buffer or something, or as somebody who's doing, gross sales of significantly more than that 1,000, it's not going to be a problem for them. The real big difficult issue is that once we get people who are doing inappropriate practices and qualifying for the ag category, we want to encourage them to, if they're going to get a tax break, to do it by doing beneficial habitat projects. But that piece doesn't really exist in the state code, never mind the local code. There's very limited options for the ways that you can qualify for the open space tax category, which is the non-extractive category. And that would require enabling legislation changes at the state level in order for us to even have the option to offer people other routes into that category.
I think we should draft it and take it to the state. I'm all over
I
it.
totally agree. Yeah.
Well-
We have lobbying staff for the county who spend all their time on urban issues and very rarely spend the time on rural issues. But this is where a place where they can make a real significant difference.
Well,
for, resource protection.
Yeah, and the agency of appeal for, each section has its own agency of appeal, right? So if a landowner feels they've been mistreated or like misclassified, then like for forestry, their agency of appeal is the Department of Forestry. For agriculture, it's VDACs. for open space, it's DCR. I gotta tell you right now, I feel like almost 100% confident just knowing the people I know in DCR. If someone's going to say like, can we use land use valuation for wildlife habitat? They're gonna be like, well, heck yeah. Why aren't you doing that already?
Oh, but that's not what an appeal authority does.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that, like,
I mean,
I
the code
think,
about how you can qualify is really clear. If somebody, if we denied somebody access to the open space tax rate, despite the fact that they were in a conservation easement that had a massive forest protection area, then they would go to DCR and say, I'm being treated wrong. But they can't say that we didn't apply well, in that case they could, but the actual qualifying methods, there's three. You can be an Ag 4 district, which has been misused. You can be a conservation easement, which doesn't really apply in Albemarle because of the way we tax easements. Or you can be in an open space agreement. And that's the problem, is there's no other options.
well, there's actually a fill in the blank option when I looked at the code. And I could find, actually, I guess I have that right here. Real estate devoted open space, real estate devoted to park or recreational purposes, conservation of land. So it says right here, conservation of land or other natural resources. Other natural resources, that seems to be pretty clearly called out. Wetlands, riparian buffers, historic or scenic purposes, assisting in the shape or character of direction, timing of community development.
Yeah, hang on a second. I can't jump around the code this fast, but all that stuff sounds very familiar. Those are all the qualifying reasons for doing an open space agreement. So I'm wondering if we're misinterpreting what that actually means. I'd have to go back and read it in full, but those are all the reasons why you can be justified to do an open space agreement. Whether that can be used as qualification standards for being in the category to begin with is, I would have to reread the whole section again and then talk to our attorneys and make sure I'm reading it right. But I'm recognizing all that language from the state mandated form of the open space agreement.
Yeah, I think the issue is, I don't think from my past understanding of like talking to the attorneys about this, is that you can't have you can only have one set of rules that apply to our open space program, right? So you can't have, say, okay, your wildlife habitat, we're going to treat you differently versus you're in an easement. Or I don't know that we can carve out a separate piece of the open space program, or at least that was my understanding when I talked to them. But in terms of like, when I looked at the form, somewhere there's like a model ordinance form that you can use, that localities can use for open space. And there's literally like a blank space. It says like, or other resource concern here. And I think that blank space could be very easily filled with wildlife habitat. I think one of the other things, but the question is, could we allow people into open space that don't have, well, no.
So,
I know the issue with some people was not having division rights. I think if that's part of the criteria, that has to, that you can't have like, it has to be part of the criteria. You have to have standard criteria that apply to everyone. Like either that's part of your criteria or it's not.
Yeah, that's not part of it's not part of the criteria in the tax code. That's a Albemarle policy about basically saying we don't want to accept people into the programs that eventually qualify you for the open space tax category. If we take properties without development potential into the conservation programs that then qualify you for the tax program, then we've just got a loophole. So that's kind of a step removed from the tax program itself.
As a total aside, I've always found this one really super problematic.
Yeah. God.
Yeah. And we do have a few properties in Albemarle County that do qualify for land use based upon their being golf courses. being private golf courses, which I just find horrific.
I mean, when you've got baseball fields and golf courses qualifying for open space and people doing grassland restoration that don't, it's kind of frustrating.
I know there's a discussion that went to the Board of Supervisors a while back about disqualifying about some of these recreational uses in the rural area, and I was really hoping that they had this opportunity to remove golf courses as a special use of the rural area, and I wish they would have done it. But I guess we can always bring that back. But you probably you remember when that happened, right, Scott? That discussion.
I'm not sure I was there for the discussions about the uses in general. I've brought up removing golf from the RA ordinance a few times, and I generally get knocked down by people who point out that because our development areas are so small that we don't want golf courses to be in the development areas and the residential zoning districts, because we have so little land. 5% of the county is in the development areas. So the concern is that we don't allow golf courses in the rural areas, and then we have to allow them in but most likely they would be allowed in the development areas. Then we use up the development area land that much faster, which means we have that much more pressure to expand the development areas into the rural areas. So we've gone round and round about that.
I think the simple answer to that is just we require them to be, if they're going to be built, they need to be dedicated as parkland.
And with that, hopefully comes restriction on the typical behavior of a golf course that is so disgustingly pollutive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem are, the private golf courses. I mean, I think that's a really, and of course the problem with a lot of these places that go bankrupt, and then the neighborhood associations get stuck with them.
Hey, do you mind if I interject here? Because there's only 7 minutes left.
There is 7 minutes, yeah.
And I would really like this group to go away with like a to-do list of the like next step, and have it really outlined so that when we meet next time that we're actually making some progress. So I think becoming more familiar, I really like the idea of finding other counties in Virginia that have struggled with this, or different models. I think that would be a great place to start. Like, I don't know if anybody in the group has the time or the energy to do some of this research, I think that it would be worthwhile. But so if they could have like a to-do list.
That would be really helpful. I mean, when you look at that list of possible policy programs, that's 25, 30 items long. That's you can't cope with that. If you all were to pick 2 or 3 things that you felt were of high priority, and then do some of this research that we unfortunately haven't been able to do, that would be a huge help.
So here's
I'd
one
like
thing.
to bring up one thing, Christine. Actually, you mentioned you met when you were at the Pollinator Festival. You met with, was it the climate coordinator for Charlottesville or Albemarle
It's
County?
for Albemarle, and his name is Gabe Haley.
What is it?
Gabe Haley. And
I think it's Daily.
Oh, Daily, sorry. Daily, sorry.
I'm terrible with names.
Dayley.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I was looking at the climate action plan, which I'm sorry to say I don't know that much about in the county, and reading about that, looking at that, and thinking about some of the comments that were made about agriculture. Lonnie had mentioned about, for example, ponds that are unshaded, that are mowed to the edge, these sort of suburban heating up. It seems like a lot of the things that we're interested in could fall under climate issues. That's shading, wildlife corridors, movement of species are very increasingly important. They probably always have been important, but increasingly important from a climate standpoint. Canopy, tree canopy, shading. How can we incentivize, for example, a landowner to connect, not to have habitat fragmentation, but to connect? And I can send out an email to the group about this, but I'm just interested, how can we conjoin, maybe, so we're not, as Scott had mentioned, dispersed in 30 different policies, but starting to look at maybe honing down in one group of policies that address climate and biodiversity in a fairly direct kind of way. Because I think the climate action plan has some good things in it, but it seems like its goals, it's listed a number of goals, but not very specific ways to achieve those. And what we're talking about are very much sort of things on the ground. How do you do this? Well, you plant around ponds and streams. You connect a green area in one parcel to a green area in another parcel. And how can we think about this creatively? How do you get these things happening? I would say habitat creation, of course, connecting habitats, canopy creation, shade. All the county areas can be treed much more, and then you incentivize developers or homeowners to plant trees. Very simple, basic things that could just have a big effect.
Yeah, I think Gabe would say that the timing for your questions is really good, because the plan we've adopted so far was the phase 1 plan, which is meant to be very general and just to be a statement of policy direction. And I haven't talked to Gabe lately because I'm sure he's really, really busy, but because that's not only is he new to the county, although he was an intern before, but that's a brand new position even. But I suspect what they're getting ready to do is to move into phase 2, which is meant to be the implementation plan, which of course would be much more detailed and specific. So, and there are obviously lots of nice links between the sort of landscape and resource protection recommendations of the climate plan and the biodiversity action plan, and that was intentional. And I think you're right that building off of that to sort of prioritize some implementation measures through the climate plan, since that is so important to the board right now, would be a really good path to take, and a good way to think about which of the many possible routes would be the ones to prioritize.
Do you know offhand whether planned public input sessions or meetings and stuff would go along with the creation of that phase 2?
I'm sure it would. I don't know any specifics.
But
Gabe,
that's
I'm sure he could
logical.
tell you. Oh yeah. I mean, we did tons. I was really impressed with the sheer amount of public input we just did for phase 1.
Yeah, I remember tons of it. Just yeah,
It was
all sorts of
huge.
wonderful.
So I'm guessing it'll be very similar. But
Okay.
I would say go ahead and contact Gabe. He's a good guy and easy to work with, and he would know a lot more details.
Thank you.
We are running out of time, folks. Just wanted to point
Yeah.
that out.
And
So
that also just brings us to the point of how can we continue to meet under what's so restrictive in terms of meeting, which is the other thing that is really frustrating. But I just got to throw that out there. So perhaps we
All
can,
very up in the air right now as to
Yeah.
when we're going to be able to go back to in person. So I would just say stay tuned on that and talk to Kim between times.
Well, I mean, is there possibility of meeting at another time? We meet for an hour at another time. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I would love us to not have to just wait to the default in person, simply because I think the world looks a lot different now for a lot of reasons. And if a climate related policy group that lives in disparate parts of the county was meeting online, we save a lot of resource just right there.
I'm sure Kim can help set all that up as far as, alternate subcommittee meeting times.
It's possible also, if you guys can, if there's any way we can do it during the day, just because my time is kind of sparse at night now.
Yeah.
But
We
that
might
might
be
work,
able to.
Carolyn, during the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's-
definitely would. The only time it doesn't work during the day is the first and third Monday. Any Tuesday,
Okay.
Thursday during the day is fine.
oh, that would work for me. I mean, I work from
Okay.
home, so I could definitely do it during the day. Before we close, I wanted to mention a couple things before we close this issue. This is Fauquier County. This is their policy. I actually think this would be a significant improvement right here. They say at least one of the following documents must be filed with the land use application. And they have the $1,000 here. They have the federal, the F, USDA farm number, and they leave this one for a conservation farm management plan prepared by a professional. So I think if we were to do if the county were to adopt this language that Fauquier County is using, that would be an improvement.
Well, this is great. Lonnie, since you're you are the chair of this group, can you, and since Carolyn has generously offered this daytime meeting time, can you go ahead and set a time in July that you guys can meet to continue this conversation? Because I think it's really important. And
Lonnie,
I want to leave it at this.
Yeah, Lonnie, can you reach out to me Tuesday?
Yes.
Because I'm off tomorrow and Monday. I'll be back in the office at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. So if you want to send me an email,
I'll just send you
tonight. Yeah, then I'll look at my July calendar on Tuesday, and sooner rather than later, I'll give you dates. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I did want to mention last, because this was brought up. This is an example of a property getting land use valuation. You see their land use value is 4,400. Total value is 328,600. Notice that their riparian buffers they're not part of the water protection ordinance. Buffer is gone. This is in that Farms of Turkey Run that was mentioned as having a neighborhood covenant that prohibited agriculture. So yeah.
Irony. Okay.
Lonnie, I want to talk more about this with you.
Yeah.
Okay. We will continue.
Really quickly. We had previously, Carolyn, talked about a midday possibility. So I do think that may work if that is something that fits in your schedule. So as you're considering, I just throw that out there.
Yeah, if you guys want to, Lonnie, when you email me, everybody on the committee, I'll send out dates and times to everybody. So we only have to do it one time.
Thank you so much.
That's for everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks everyone for your time and your patience. And I know we had a lot to cover. We'll be in touch.
Everybody.
Let's do more. I look forward to it. Thank you, everybody.